The Young and the Restless spoilers. Full. We thought Matt had reduced his presence in Genoa, but no. He's still plotting revenge against the Newman family, and Nick and Adam are his targets. They're in real danger. Nick is Matt's target because he's always stood up for the Newman family and is willing to confront Matt. Nick tried to kill Matt, but luckily he survived and came back stronger than ever. And Adam inevitably is part of that equation. Adam has never been just a pawn. He is history, conflict, unresolved, tension, refusing to be buried. Riza is different. She's targeting Adam, and when Adam is firmly in their grasp, what will they do? Is it just a coincidence, or perhaps something darker, as if fate is orchestrating things with such precision that it's impossible to ignore? Matt realized instantly that the anger within her, raw and unmasked, was entirely directed at Adam. It wasn't the kind of hatred that fades with time. It was a sharper, more developed hatred waiting for the opportune moment to finally be unleashed. And when Matt realized what she wanted, what she needed, the decision became easy. They didn't need to trust each other. They just needed to want the same outcome. Riza was a woman, but she was a professional assassin, second to none, so anyone would be terrified, even someone as powerful as Adam. She didn't just want to capture him. She wanted him to feel powerless, to understand the meaning of being humiliated, of being stripped of control, just as she believed he had done to her life. When she forced him into the trunk of the car, it wasn't just a physical act. It was symbolic, a reversal of power, a declaration that whatever Adam thought he was, whatever influence he believed he possessed, was meaningless in that moment. At the same time, Matt handled Nick with a terrifying calmness. There was no rage on his face as he approached, no dramatic confrontation, only precision. A calculated blow, a moment of weakness, and Nick fell before he could comprehend what was happening. It was effective, almost cold, but beneath that surface lay something far more dangerous. Matt wasn't acting instinctively. He was executing something he had envisioned in his mind countless times. Bringing them together was the final step, the point where everything converged. Two brothers bound by years of conflict, rivalry, and a complex loyalty, neither could fully escape, were now torn apart in the other's scheme. And standing above them were two individuals driven by entirely different forms of darkness. Riza's hatred burned fiercely, emotionally, and unpredictably. Matt's hatred was more subtle, colder, more controlled, but no less destructive. What made the situation even more precarious was the way these forces began to interact. Riza wanted immediate gratification, release from all that she had endured. Matt wanted something more lasting, something that would leave a lasting impact, something that would not only hurt Nick and Adam, but also destroy what they represented. And caught in the middle of that clash was a reality shifting faster than either of them anticipated, because this was the weakness in their alliance. Hatred doesn't cooperate well. It doesn't follow a plan. It cannot be contained. Riza's need for revenge began to overwhelm every structure, every ounce of patience Matt tried to impose. And Matt, despite his careful calculations, began to feel the boundaries of control slipping away in ways he hadn't anticipated. The situation was no longer entirely under his control. Nick, even unconscious, represented something unsettling in this whole affair. He wasn't just a victim, he was a variable. A man, when pushed to the brink, doesn't simply collapse, he reacts. And Adam, trapped but still highly alert, possessed a unique kind of unpredictability forged by years of survival, manipulation, and resilience that refused to disappear even in the most perilous situations. The air in the main study of the Newman Ranch was thick with a suffocating, almost palpable tension heavy enough to choke the life out of the room. Outside, the sprawling grounds of the Genoa City estate were bathed in the cold, unforgiving light of a Wisconsin morning, but inside the atmosphere was entirely consumed by the shadows of a resurrected nightmare. Nicholas Newman paced the length of the Persian rug, his boots sinking into the woven wool with heavy, agitated thuds. His jaw was clenched so tightly that a muscle ticked visibly beneath his skin, his eyes burning with a mixture of profound disbelief and unadulterated rage. "He is breathing Adam," Nick said, his voice a low, dangerous gravel that seemed to vibrate against the mahogany-paneled walls. He stopped pacing and slammed his hands down on the edge of Victor Newman's massive desk, leaning forward. After everything he did, after the absolute hell he put Sharon through, after the trauma that nearly destroyed her, Matt Clark is walking the earth. It defies logic. It defies sanity. Adam Newman stood perfectly still by the floor-to-ceiling window, his hands resting casually in the pockets of his tailored charcoal suit. To the untrained eye, he looked entirely unbothered, a portrait of cold, calculating Newman detachment. But internally, his mind was racing at a breakneck speed, analyzing variables, calculating risks, and plotting a trajectory of absolute destruction. He knew the history. He knew that Matt Clark wasn't just a rival. He was a monster from Nick and Sharon's teenage years, a malicious, manipulative predator whose past crimes had left indelible scars on the Newman family. And now, operating under the alias Mitch Bacall, Matt had crawled back out from the grave to finish whatever sick vendetta he had started decades ago. "Panic won't serve us, Nick," Adam said, his tone deliberately even designed to act as a cooling agent to his brother's fiery wrath. He turned slowly from the window to face his older brother. "The fact remains that Matt is alive, and he is a direct existential threat to this family, to Sharon, to you, to all of us. We are not going to wait for him to make the next move. We are going to preempt him. We are going to cut the head off the snake before it has a chance to strike." Nick straightened up, crossing his arms over his chest. The animosity that usually simmered between the two brothers was temporarily suspended, overridden by the necessity of a united front. "And how exactly do you propose we do that? The man is a ghost. He knows how to hide, and he knows how to manipulate the system. The authorities won't move fast enough, assuming they even believe the convoluted truth about his identity." "We don't use the authorities," Adam replied, his eyes darkening with a familiar, dangerous glint. "We use my network. Matt has been operating in the shadows, and if you want to catch a rat, you have to go into the sewers. Specifically, the neon-lit sewers of Las Vegas." Nick frowned, a deep crease forming between his brows. "Vegas, you think he's hiding out there?" "I know he has ties there," Adam corrected, taking a step toward the center of the room. "And more importantly, I have ties there. When I was living out in the desert, when I didn't know I was a Newman and went by the name Spidas, I ran in circles that make Matt Clark look like an amateur. There is a woman, Riza Thompson. She was my handler, my eyes and ears in the underground gambling circuit. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, moves through the Vegas underworld without Riza knowing about it. If Matt has been operating out west, if he's seeking resources or muscle, Riza will have his scent." Nick's skepticism was immediate and vocal. "You want us to trust some underground poker queen from your amnesiac days, Adam. This isn't a game of Texas Hold'em. This is about Sharon's life. This is about our family's safety. How do you know this woman won't just sell us out to the highest bidder?" "Because I know how she operates," Adam insisted, his voice hardening with conviction. "I trust her greed, Nick. I trust our history. She respects power, and she respects cold, hard cash. I can offer her both. We fly to Las Vegas, I make contact with Riza, and I get the exact coordinates on Matt Clark. Once we have his location, we deal with the threat permanently." Nick stared at his younger brother for a long, silent moment, searching Adam's face for any sign of deception or hidden agendas. Finding only a grim, shared determination, Nick finally gave a slow, curt nod. "Fine, we do it your way. But if this blows up in our faces, Adam, the fallout is on you." Hours later, the sleek silver fuselage of the Newman Enterprises private jet sliced through the atmosphere, leaving the freezing temperatures of the Midwest behind for the arid, blistering heat of the Nevada desert. Inside the luxurious cabin, the silence between the brothers was deafening. Nick spent the flight staring out the window at the endless expanse of clouds, his mind undoubtedly replaying the horrors Matt Clark had inflicted upon Sharon. Adam, meanwhile, sat across the aisle, his laptop open, running encrypted searches and reviewing old contacts As the jet began its descent into Las Vegas, the glittering artificial oasis of the Strip came into view, a sprawling monument to vice, illusion, and consequence. For Adam, looking down at the neon labyrinth stirred a complex cocktail of emotions. Part of him loathed the city for what it represented, a time when he was lost, disconnected from his bloodline, wandering through a haze of high-stakes games and dangerous alliances as Spider. But another part of him felt a dark, familiar thrill. Spider was ruthless. Spider didn't have to apologize for his nature, and to find a monster like Matt Clark, Adam knew he had to resurrect the ghost of Spider, if only for a few hours. The heat hit them like a physical blow as they disembarked on the private tarmac. The dry, ozone-scented air of the desert was a stark contrast to the crisp winds of Genoa City. Here is how this plays out. Adam instructed as they climbed into the waiting black SUV. You check into the Bellagio under a corporate alias. You stay out of sight and keep your phone on. I go to meet Riza alone. Like hell you do, Nick countered instantly, his protective instincts flaring. I'm not sitting on the sidelines while you play secret agent in Sin City. I have a vested interest in finding Matt, which is exactly why you need to stay back. Adam fired back his tone, leaving no room for argument. Riza is paranoid on her best days. Her entire survival in this city depends on her ability to control her environment. If I walk into her suite flanked by Nicholas Newman, she will instantly assume it's a corporate shakedown or a trap. She will clam up and our only lead will evaporate. I need to approach her as Spider. I need her to feel comfortable. Once I have the intel, I will text you and we move together. Do you understand? Nick ground his teeth, clearly hating the logic but unable to refute it. You get 1 hour, Adam. If I don't hear from you, I'm tearing this city apart looking for you. Fair enough, Adam agreed. The SUV dropped Adam off at the entrance of a high-end exclusive hotel situated slightly off the main strip, a place where the real money changed hands, far from the flashing cameras of the tourists. He navigated the opulent, dimly lit lobby with the practiced ease of a man who owned the shadows. He bypassed the casino floor entirely, stepping into a private elevator that required a specialized key card to access the penthouse levels. When the elevator doors parted, Adam stepped out into a quiet, plush hallway. He approached the double mahogany doors of Riza's suite and knocked twice, a specific rhythmic sequence they had used in the old days. A moment later, the door swung open. Riza Thompson stood in the doorway, framed by the warm amber lighting of the lavish suite behind her. She was as striking as Adam remembered, sharp features, dark calculating eyes, and an aura of effortless, lethal sophistication. She wore a sleek emerald green silk dress that contrasted sharply with the cold metallic glint of the heavy rings on her fingers. For a second, neither of them spoke. Riza's eyes swept over Adam, taking in the expensive suit, the groomed appearance, the undeniable air of a billionaire heir that had replaced the rugged, unpredictable energy of the amnesiac gambler she once knew. Spider, she finally purred her voice, a smooth, smoky drawl that held a hint of amusement. I must admit, when I got the encrypted message, I thought someone was playing a very cruel joke. I never thought I'd see you crawl back to my web. It's Adam now, Riza, he replied, evenly stepping past her into the suite without waiting for an invitation. But I need Spider's network, and I'm willing to pay heavily for the privilege. Riza closed the door softly, the heavy click of the lock echoing in the quiet room. The suite was a testament to her success, panoramic windows overlooking the neon cityscape, velvet furnishings, and a fully stocked crystal wet bar. She walked over to the bar and poured 2 glasses of top-shelf bourbon, the ice clinking musically against the glass. Adam Newman, she mused, handing him a glass. The prodigal son returned to his throne. You traded the desert grit for corporate silk. So tell me what could possibly bring the great Victor Newman's heir back to the gutter. Adam didn't drink. He set the glass down on a glass coffee table and looked her dead in the eye. I'm looking for a ghost, a man who recently came back from the dead. He goes by the name Mitch Bacall now, but his real name is Matt Clark. He's a threat to my family, Riza, a very dangerous, very unpredictable threat. I know he has connections in Los Angeles, and I know he's been moving through Vegas to secure capital and muscle. I need to know where he is." Riza took a slow sip of her bourbon, her dark eyes studying him over the rim of the glass. She didn't look surprised by the name. In fact, her expression remained maddeningly neutral. Matt Clark, a messy name for a messy man. And what exactly do you plan to do when you find him? Adam, serve him with a restraining order. Have your corporate lawyers bury him in injunctions. No, Adam said, his voice dropping an octave, the cold, ruthless edge of his personality bleeding through the polished exterior. He stepped closer to her, the air between them thick with unspoken intent. I don't want to sue him. I don't want to arrest him. I want him neutralized. I want to know where he sleeps, where he eats, and who is protecting him. I am going to dismantle his life, and then I am going to make sure he can never, ever return to Genoa City to terrorize my family again. I want him erased. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick banded stack of bearer bonds, tossing them onto the table next to the untouched bourbon. That is the down payment. You get triple that when you give me an address. Riza looked down at the money. It was a fortune, enough to buy a small island, let alone a piece of information. But instead of the greedy satisfaction Adam expected to see in her eyes, a strange, chilling silence fell over the room. The ambient hum of the city outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of Riza's slow, deliberate breathing. She reached out and picked up the stack of bonds, weighing them in her hand for a moment before dropping them back onto the table with a dismissive thud. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Neutralized, Riza repeated, the smoky amusement completely vanishing from her voice, replaced by a sharp, brittle edge. You Newmans are so incredibly arrogant. You think you can just waltz back into my city, throw your inherited wealth on my table, and expect the desert to swallow your enemies on command. Adam's instincts, honed from years of survival both in the corporate boardroom and the underground, instantly flared. He noticed the micro-expressions, the tightening of her jaw, the sudden rigid posture, the way her hand drifted subtly toward the folds of a decorative silk throw pillow on the sofa. He had miscalculated. Something was terribly wrong. "Is there a problem?" Riza Adam asked, keeping his voice steady, though his muscles coiled with sudden tension. "If the price isn't right, we can negotiate. But I don't have time for games." Games. Riza let out a harsh, bitter laugh that scraped against the walls of the luxurious suite. "You think this is a game to me, Adam. You think you can just put on the spider persona when it suits your needs, use my resources, use my protection, and then shed the skin when it gets too bloody." She slammed her glass down on the bar, the crystal shattering at the stem, amber liquid spilling across the polished marble. "When you got your precious memory back, when you realized you were a billionaire prince, you vanished. You left in the dead of night. You didn't just leave me behind, Adam. You left me holding the bag. You left me to deal with the loan sharks, the angry cartel bosses, and the mess that Spider made at the tables. I almost died cleaning up your collateral damage while you were back in Wisconsin playing Family Man." Adam took a slow step back, trying to de-escalate the sudden violent shift in the room's dynamic. "I compensated you for that, Riza. I sent funds through untraceable accounts. I made sure you were protected financially." "Money doesn't stop a bullet, Adam," she spat, her eyes flashing with a deep, long-festering hatred. The sophisticated poker queen had vanished, replaced by a woman consumed by a thirst for vengeance. "I had to claw my way back from the brink. I had to make alliances I never wanted to make just to survive the fallout of your sudden departure. You left me to the wolves." She paused, a dark, terrifying smile slowly spreading across her face. It was a smile completely devoid of warmth or sanity. "But the funny thing about wolves, Adam, sometimes they introduce you to other predators. Predators who share your exact grievances." Adam's blood ran ice cold. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together in his mind with sickening clarity. Matt Clark, he breathed the realization hitting him like a physical blow to the chest. Bingo Riza whispered, her voice dripping with venom. She began to pace slowly, keeping herself positioned between Adam and the door. You aren't the only ghost who came to Vegas looking to make a deal. Matt is a very resourceful, very persuasive man. He knew you. He knew how your mind worked. He told me that when he finally revealed himself, the great Adam Newman wouldn't run to the police. He knew you would try to handle it yourself. He knew you would tap your old underground network. Adam's eyes darted toward the exit, calculating the distance, calculating the odds of overpowering her. Riza, listen to me. You don't know who you are dealing with. Matt Clark is a psychopath. He has a history of violence against women. He will use you for this trap, and then he will eliminate you to cover his tracks. You are signing your own death warrant by allying with him. Save the psychological profile for someone who cares, Riza snapped. Matt came to me weeks ago. We had a long, very illuminating conversation about you, Adam, about the arrogance of the Newman family. He paid me double what you just threw on that table just to send him a message the second you reached out to me. So, this whole thing. Adam's voice was tight, the sinking feeling of utter entrapment washing over him. My text to you, the meeting. It was all a setup. It was a golden opportunity, Riza corrected, her eyes gleaming with triumphant malice, a chance to finally balance the scales. You came here thinking you were the hunter, Adam. You thought you were going to use me to neutralize Matt. But the truth is, you've just walked willingly into your own slaughterhouse. Adam's hand twitched toward the inner pocket of his jacket, desperate to reach his phone to send a single panicked distress signal to Nick waiting at the Bellagio. But before his fingers could even brush the fabric of his suit, Riza's hand darted beneath the silk throw pillow on the sofa. In a fraction of a second, the dynamic of the room shifted from a tense negotiation to a deadly hostage situation. Riza leveled a sleek silver semi-automatic pistol directly at Adam's chest. Her grip was steady, her finger resting lightly against the trigger, displaying a terrifying comfort with the weapon. Riza tutted, motioning with the barrel of the gun. Keep your hands exactly where I can see them, Spider. Don't even think about reaching for that phone. My finger is twitching, and I would love nothing more than to ruin this expensive rug with your blood. Adam froze his heart, hammering violently against his ribs. The situation had completely, catastrophically reversed. The cold, logical plan he had formulated in the safety of the Newman Ranch had crumbled into dust, replaced by the brutal, unforgiving reality of a Vegas vendetta. He was completely isolated. Nick was miles away, oblivious to the fact that their preemptive strike had just become a fatal snare. You're making a mistake, Riza. Adam said, his voice remarkably steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. He locked eyes with her, trying to find a shred of reason, a sliver of hesitation. If I disappear, my brother will tear this city down to the bedrock. My father will unleash hell on you. There won't be a hole deep enough for you to hide in. Let Victor Newman come, Riza scoffed, stepping closer, the muzzle of the gun now mere feet from Adam's heart. By the time your family figures out what happened to you, Matt and I will be long gone. And you. You'll just be another tragic statistic in the desert. She gestured sharply with her free hand. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. Now. Adam hesitated for a fraction of a second, his mind screaming at him to fight, to disarm her, to do anything but surrender. But the cold, dead certainty in Riza's eyes told him that if he moved aggressively, she would pull the trigger without a second thought. She didn't just want him captured, she wanted him broken. She wanted him to feel the same helpless terror she had felt when he abandoned her. Slowly, agonizingly, Adam raised his hands and turned around, the heavy silence of the lavish suite pressing down on him like a physical weight. The revenge plan forged in the dark corners of the past by Matt Clark and Riza Thompson had been flawlessly executed. The trap had sprung shut, its steel jaws locking firmly around him. As he felt the cold, hard muzzle of the pistol press sharply against the base of his spine, Adam realized with a chilling, absolute certainty that the ghost of Spider hadn't come to Las Vegas to hunt. He had come to die.